welcome back. And back to our conversation with Ambassador Keshi, who says he's not ruling out external influence in the Burundi crisis. You did mention the army. You said the coup, the protesters saw it as a distraction. But you think they probably heaved a sigh of relief when that happened. At least that would have stalled President Nkurunziza's bid to run a third term.
I don't think so. I don't think so from what is being said. You know, I think the president is going to use this as a good excuse to crack down even more in order to hold on to, you know, to power. Luckily, I've not heard him going after the quote-unquote the leaders of the opposition. Right now, it's limited to
the army.
You know, to the army. But you could also see that some of his supporters are going around destroying private radio stations. And that's not comforting when you look at it very clearly.
Yeah,
you know, that it could be an excuse for him to crack down more. It could also be an excuse for him to say, look, in view of the situation, you know, I'm going to contest, I'm going to stay on because I need to, you know, to stabilize the situation in the country.
Yeah, but all of this started because, you know, Burundi itself was not even stable in the first place. That's how Nkurunziza came into power as president. So it does, you know, bring to mind really what the aim of doing this is. I feel, well, a lot of people.
What is the aim of the coup?
Not even what's the aim of the coup. What's the aim of running for a third term? Because quite understandably, he says, well, the Constitutional Court says the first term was given to him by Parliament. He was in Parliament, and then he ran for office, and then he won. That is a first term, by all standards. But according to the Constitutional Court, that is not a first term, and he can run again. And that's the main bone of contention.
I just think that some people are used to getting onto power and deciding that, look, either because of the nature and the dynamics of the country itself, they think they can railroad their desire, you know, and come up with any excuse, any kind of excuse. When you look at every country where we have sit-tight presidents, they've given one reason or the other why they should not leave. If we leave, there will be instability, or the people want us to, you know, to stay. The truth of the matter is that he has, whatever way, look, he controls the Constitutional Court. So the judgment was in his favor. But the fact still remains that he has done 2 terms. And I think that given the desire of this continent to have democratic leaders all over the place, he should simply take the path of honor and, you know, leave. Because you see, he has not, yes, since the Civil War ended, and there's been stability, there's been some measure of efforts to begin to revive the economy of, you know, Burundi. But look, if you've not done that much in 10 years, what are you going to do in another 5 years? And there's no guarantee that after that 5 years, there'll be no other excuse for doing another thing.
I see your point there, but what I was going to point out is, even in the 10 years that President Nkurunziza has ruled the country, there's been no viable opposition. There is no level field of play politically in the country. So even if he did even if he did leave, you don't think that he would leave? I mean, there would be a political chaos. There would be political anarchy in the country because he's leaving. Which of the candidates do you think could possibly, you know, take up the mantle?
Listen, look. We make this argument once a while, you know, that if a leader leaves, there'll be chaos. As a matter of fact, the longer a leader stays, the more likely there will be chaos if he leaves. If he has arranged a political transition and look among his cabinet ministers or among the party members and encourage one to be successor, or they have a constitutional order in which somebody else could be encouraged to try to be president, and he ensures a smooth transition and hands over, there will be peace in that country today. It is when leaders assume this rule that if I leave, if I die, you know, the country will go into a chaotic situation. But we're saying that, look, they will die, the country still remains and survives.
And
so when you look at every country where you have sit-tight presidents, whatever is keeping them on, sometimes I think I've said, we had this discussion on the phone, and I said it's probably the fear, of leaving. Or I remember when we had the old man in Ivory Coast. We used to make this joke then on the West Coast that he wants a state burial. But you will still get a state burial even as an ex-president.
And you will still get more honor at the end of the day.
Sure, for sure.
But African leaders who sit tight, it would seem, are only creating a conducive environment for a military coup to take place.
To some extent, I think one thing the Burundi situation has shown, it's that it's becoming, or it's becoming difficult these days to make a coup. In those days, in the days gone by, you need to do 2 or 3 things to have a successful coup. One, you seize the communication, whatever it is, and cut it off. 2, you seize the radio stations. And then you announce and everything collapses and the military are in power. Today it's becoming difficult. You have, even in this country, you have 2 major or 3 major networks. You have hundreds, if not thousands, of radio stations today. You have the social media. So which of them are they going to control successfully within the limited space that others might have to react? So it's going to be difficult. The truth of the matter is that having in some of these countries, it is difficult to actually determine whether it is the president or the supporters of the presidents that are urging, him to stay on for whatever reason.
I think we've seen a similar scenario. What's going on in Burundi, in Burkina Faso? The president eventually had to leave office because of all the protests that were going on. He eventually had to listen to the people, and then he gave up power. You think the same thing would happen in Burundi?
I don't know, but in Burkina Faso, there was a proper, well-organized,
yes.
well-organized political leaders who were leading the protests in Burundi. I mean, in Burkina Faso.
And that will be the difference in this.
Yes, that's the difference. Yeah. And in any case, I also think that in that case, that the president, for one reason or another, the last president, Kampare, his support in the military was also getting weaker and weaker over the years. So somehow, I think its own option was probably to leave, as he was compelled to do. But in Burundi, it appears a different one. The president of Burundi, from all reports, seems to be very popular in the rural areas. 80% of the people are Tutsis, and those involved in this crisis are Tutsi. Are Hutus. So with less than 20 plus, Tutsi, the opposition is probably not strong enough. And I think we need to make this point that in a number of these countries, for democracy to thrive, there must be a very strong and effective opposition, irrespective of the challenges they face. I think if they are well organized, if they persist, not just come out at election time, if they persist and ensure that they keep reminding the president, or at least they keep making the democratic system work, it will probably, help.
Very quickly, do you think that the president should run a 3rd term?
I don't think so. I honestly think that the best thing for him to do is to look for a successor and put in a successor there. The AU, I think, has called for a postponement of election, but they're also insisting that the election should be held. You see, the reason why he has to go is very simple. One, for the sake of the people who want a change. There's no doubt about that the people want a change. Second thing is that, look, the way the continent is going, the continent has changed a lot, and we cannot have only 5 or 6 people still reminding us of those days where you have dictators and sit-tight presidents. And the third point, I make that point, is that, look, it is in the best interest of everybody for these presidents to organize an election if they like, let them appoint a successor, you know, and that will ensure a smooth transition and less chaos. Africa, in many ways, we are doing relatively better than we did a couple of years ago.
Ambassador Keshi, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you as always. Thank you.
This is where we end the program this week. It's been great having your company. Let's do this again next time. But you can always drop us a few lines. The addresses are on your screen. I am Amarachi Ubani. Goodbye now.